The AI boom just produced its biggest Wall Street moment yet, and the money is not stopping at the stock exchange. It is headed for low Earth orbit and straight into the rules that govern your feed. This is the Cyber City Media AI Desk. Today, a record shattering chip IPO, a plan for 100,000 new satellites built with AI devices in mind, and regulators on two continents pushing back on how tech companies keep you scrolling and keep you paying. First, the money story. SK Hynix, the South Korean memory chip giant, said Friday it has raised $26.5 billion in its United States market debut, as reported by TechCrunch. That makes it the largest ever U.S. listing by a non American company, topping Alibaba's $25 billion IPO back in 2014. The company sold roughly 178 million American depositary shares at $149 each, and demand was reportedly more than 7 times the available shares. Trading opened on the NASDAQ on Friday under a temporary ticker, with regular trading set for Monday under the symbol SKHY, and the stock opened 14% above its IPO price. Why the frenzy? SK Hynix makes memory, including the high bandwidth memory that goes inside AI processors, and NVIDIA relies on it as one of its primary suppliers. The Verge notes the company hit a $1 trillion valuation in May and briefly overtook Samsung as South Korea's most valuable company, and that as of June it holds 29% of the global DRAM market, according to Counterpoint data. The new cash is earmarked for a new fab in South Korea, a packaging facility, and the EUV scanners that make next-generation chips possible. And Washington is paying attention. TechCrunch reports U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says he is already in talks with Samsung and SK Hynix about building new factories in the United States, while competitor Micron has announced plans to invest $250 billion in new American manufacturing. From Wall Street to orbit, SpaceX has applied to the Federal Communications Commission for permission to launch 100,000 third-generation Starlink satellites, as reported by ZDNet. For scale, there are nearly 11,000 Starlink satellites in orbit today, so this would be a constellation roughly 10 times larger than everything SpaceX has launched so far. The company is promising ultra-low latency, multi-gigabit symmetrical broadband, and claims the plan can deliver on the order of a 100-fold increase in total Starlink bandwidth, with latency dropping below 20 milliseconds. Here is the AI angle. SpaceX told the FCC the Gen 3 network is intended to serve not just consumers and enterprises, but, in its words, billions of AI-powered devices worldwide, tying the constellation directly to the compute and data demands of large-scale AI systems. The new satellites are heavy, more than 2,000 kilograms each, which ZDNet notes means SpaceX will lean on Falcon Heavy and eventually Starship to get them up. ZDNet's Stephen Von Nichols is skeptical of the speed claims, pointing out that real-world Starlink downloads today often sit far below the advertised peaks, and approval is not guaranteed. The application now enters the FCC's review process, where rivals can file objections, and any grant could carry strict conditions on debris and spectrum interference. Over in Europe, Meta is facing a deadline on the very design of its apps. The European Commission has preliminarily found that features like autoplay, infinite scroll, and highly personalized recommendations on Facebook and Instagram are addictive, as reported by Ars Technica. In the Commission's words, these features fuel the user's urge to keep scrolling and shift the brain into autopilot mode. Regulators say Meta did not adequately assess the risks of its addictive design on the physical and mental well-being of users, including minors. The Commission's recommendations are blunt. Consider disabling autoplay and infinite scroll by default. Implement effective screen time breaks and make the recommender system less engagement-oriented. If Meta fails to comply with the Digital Services Act, it risks fines of up to 6% of its global annual turnover. Meta disagrees. A company spokesperson told Reuters the findings do not accurately take into account its protections for teens, pointing to teen accounts that let parents block access at night and cap daily screen time. But the Commission says those mitigation efforts have failed to tackle the risks, and the EU's tech chief, Hanna Virkkunen, put it plainly. Either Meta changes its design or a non-compliance decision will follow. Regulators are moving on this side of the Atlantic, too. New York City is set to become the first city in the United States to ban deceptive subscription practices, as reported by The Guardian. The new rule from the Mamdani administration's Consumer Protection Office takes effect October 1st, and it targets companies that trap customers into recurring charges for things like gym memberships and streaming services. Companies that do not provide a simple way to cancel could pay $525 per user subscription, plus back fees and additional fines. The city is also going after so-called junk fees, with a proposed rule requiring sellers to advertise the total price of any good or service up front, mandatory charges included. The city's consumer protection chief, Samuel Levine, summed up the spirit of the rule. People shouldn't have to wait on hold for half an hour, send a certified letter, or show up in person just to cancel a subscription. A quick check-in on the AI industry itself. Hugging Face chief executive Clem DeLong says open source AI is booming in a conversation on TechCrunch's Equity podcast. Hugging Face has grown into something like a GitHub for AI, where builders share and download open models and datasets, and TechCrunch reports it is now used by roughly half the Fortune 500. DeLang says he has watched the same story play out again and again. Companies start on frontier model APIs, but as they scale, the costs push them toward open source models they can run themselves. He also shared a worry that a handful of big companies could end up controlling everything, which he argues is exactly why the open versus closed fight matters right now. Time for 3 quick hits from around the industry. 1. Disney Plus is considering making some of its content free to watch, according to a Business Insider report covered by The Verge. A source told the outlet that Disney's chief product and technology officer, Adam Smith, mentioned a free streaming tier at a company town hall on Thursday. No word yet on which shows or when, and The Verge notes Disney did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The context is YouTube. With so much TV time going to free video, Disney Plus has already launched vertical video feeds and always-on channels, and a free tier would be the next step in that fight for attention. 2. Spotify is giving listeners control over Release Radar, one of its most popular weekly playlists, as reported by The Verge. New options rolling out on mobile and desktop let you narrow the playlist to a specific genre. Focus on artists that are new to you and choose from up to 5 filters like Discover New Artists and Editor's Picks. Spotify says it is also tweaking the algorithm for more personalized recommendations. And 3, one for the hardware tinkerers. Developer Jeff Geerling has been testing Quad RF, a software-defined radio kit built on a Raspberry Pi 5 with a phased array that can visualize the radio spectrum in augmented reality. In his write-up, Geerling says the unit picked a DJI drone out of the sky behind his studio and lit up his 5 GHz Wi-Fi network as a colorful blob on screen. A basic kit runs $499 on Crowd Supply, and he reports the crowdfunding campaign is already beyond expectations. And finally, the feed you actually live in. Instagram head Adam Mosseri says the platform will not filter out AI-generated content, but argues that if you do not like AI, then, quote, you shouldn't have it in your feed, as reported by The Verge. Speaking on Lenny Rachitsky's podcast, Mosseri drew a line between sorting content and banning it. He thinks Instagram should label AI content rather than remove it, and that people who love AI content should be able to have a feed that is, in his words, just AI town. He admitted detection is hard, and that Instagram may lose the ability to spot AI posts as models